Here wasn't coming on. I heard somebody say it smelled. Yeah, you hear it all.
Well, odds are, wait a couple days and you won't need them anymore.
Right, hopefully. There's not that many people in town anyway.
No.
15-20%, I would say. Something like that.
I'm 16 always.
Yeah, we're back to
It's like that too.
normal.
Normal, you'll just.
Normal pre-COVID.
Yeah.
That's what we're hearing.
Pre-Harvey?
Yep. Pre-Harvey or pre-COVID?
Strike that.
Really? I mean,
I think it's like 2019, kind of the,
Cage.
the numbers are different because the prices are high compared to what they were in 2019, but the
In between the meeting.
very, very safe.
Stop.
Hmm.
Make sure
You know, we're gonna see,
you can leave it.
I still think the average is gonna be 150 to 155 nights per property. Where really in 2018, 19, it was 135 to 140 was been big. So, but that 175, 180 is not happening.
so you're the big guy in the room right now, so. You know, how many, and again, because this,
Yeah.
what I'm gonna ask you is based kind of on a lot of numbers. Just offhand. Are you seeing a lot of people that bought properties and had an expectation of income and are demanding you charge rates to cover their cost and what they're in, or yeah, or even you, I guess, I hear anecdotally that was happening. That was happening when we were bouncing between rentals, in between houses. Yeah, one of the landlords, we were willing to stay another month. It wasn't rented, there was no rentals. But they had this amount in their mind, they needed to cover their costs. And this was, well, a year ago. So this is about this time of year. And we said, well, that's crazy. Well, and actually, I think that we found you for that month, but
How much more do you think it was in 2015 to come to Puerto Rico for a weekend versus today?
Probably about 60% increase at least.
It's.
It's, you know, and I know
the reason I ask is just look at when demand, if there's back to normal,
right.
if that's the case, how many of these folks, you know, just had these
It's
really
going
grand
slowly.
expectations?
Yeah, the rates were minimal. Like way behind the real estate rates for the last year and a half. I mean, really bad. But now we're starting to
What do
see,
you, they're too low?
no, yeah, they're way lower compared to the price.
People are selling property, they can't make it down.
Well, you take a 3-bedroom steel home that's out here that, you know, maybe one that Christensen built over there that they sold for 325,000 when they were brand new.
Right.
They're now 700. And you bought in at 325. Wow, you're doing well. You know, those don't bring in.
They're not gonna bring in 75.
No, they're gonna bring in 40.
Mhm.
And so they'll not make
But
it
that
10%.
house will bring in 40 a year.
Yeah, they won't do the 10% model. But they'll get, you add a pool.
So now that's where I'm having to tell buyers, well, you need to find something that has a pool if you want to get that kind of.
Bang for your buck is the only way. Is
And we are seeing the appropriate number of. So
And
they're both
don't
permits.
heat it, don't heat it on days like this with electricity and think it's gonna be a hot.
Well, last year I used to leave them all at 80. Just so we can take them, I just turn them off. Just like-
Yours are gas, right?
All gas. But I mean, our gas costs double.
Have you heard of these new ones that are it's like some kind of heat pump?
Yeah.
I have an owner that has one that, but
How expensive is it?
So last year, on average, I was about 700 per month per house. And I'm upwards, well, if I was running it the way I was last year, I'd be double.
Mm.
I'd go
But that was 700 per month, even if heated all the time daily.
it's not horrible, because I have some owners that have them, but we don't know what to, because a way of texting want the whole month, but it's like, but you're not paying.
Right.
$55 to or so a day is kind of, and that's on a propane. We had one that really was, but I tried to see where it was, and it was about $25 worth of propane per day. But the ambient temperature has a big role in that.
Yeah, I'll tell you, Mike, so I'm first time pooling, so I don't know what I don't know about pools, but I anticipated, so, you know, I started looking and got this 12 mil bubble wrap is all it is, and they call it solar deal.
Yeah.
But it cost me 150, and then I got amazing value, a roller, nice aluminum little deal to roll it up, $189. Man, I haven't added water, and I was losing a lot of water to evaporation, and everything else, and it's keeping the temperature. And it's,
With a rental though, you would feel, that would be. nice.
well, I mean, maybe, but at least.
Yeah, we'll look it up, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'll send you the deal that it was, the roller deal with it, the bubble wrap wasn't hard to pull on and off, pretty small cockpit, it was mine to 10 by 20, so one small. But it was only, I think, the thicker stuff, which is, well, no, there's all different thicknesses, so I would encourage you at least go with the thick one. It's not hard to pull off and roll up the roller. You know, clip it in, you know, one person rolls it up and then it rolls off the same way and it's keeping it whole. We haven't had enough sun since I put it on there to see how much solar it is, but it says it generated a ton of solar. You cannot, yeah. These are just the posted agendas. There's not going to be much on there, but it's the starting point.
Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Didn't really go across this. No, it was kind of like, right? Yeah. A lot. So it goes like.
So it's,
It goes.
Um,
We would need.
I got it.
Dale, one of your council colleagues is on his way, so we'll wait for that. I'm probably wait. We have two councilmen that are on here. He's on his way. Okay.
He's like, we have.
Oh, yeah, I know, but. All the usual suspects are invited.
barbecue sample.
That's.
I wonder, most of my stuff is all in built since 27. So we can't do very, because we had to do barbecue.
Where do you want to sit?
Everybody, I said that to Tim, and I think that's probably doesn't work that way.
What color is it?
It's too cold.
It's
like fall. We went from summer straight to winter.
Just wait, another couple days.
What? I mean,
And.
Been 2 days in a row.
I'm going through the experience. Yeah. Oh, we spent, yeah. Our product, yeah.
it is.
But you don't, it looks just like.
I want to see. February, we'll take it.
As well. Really possible to get them. Oh, they're having. Oh, really? There, this point,
And then braids today,
Wouldn't do.
it's candy. Girls play tomorrow is 10, then it's 6, boys play 7:30. And the boys will play twice on Friday.
Yeah, where you? There's no thing. That's all.
There's Chad.
You're young, Chad.
Well, I have a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's on.
Yeah. Oh, that's the last one on my. Yes, sir.
Oh,
I was gonna leave that last.
I'm just like.
You like. People have money kind of 15, 16, and runs here for like a lot of guys. They think the same thing they did back then. Oh, no, that great. Yeah, we're in but it goes 3 minutes away, so. He's kind of the. Yeah, last meeting when the agent basically with, everybody's focus on. Your report being an occupancy is really recognizing that we're physically got together, so. Yeah. Absolutely. So that's where we started. Flip flops again? Gentlemen? Right, man.
I came on my side there.
Oh, wow.
All right, so bring us the meeting to order. So today is our final meeting. So we need to come out here today with some recommendations to the council. There's a lot of people that want some things taken care of, so hopefully you all can come up with some final recommendations today.
And again, the focus, Tim, I just still, we ended with the focus being on parking and occupancy, and really seemed like there was a lot of leaning towards the occupancy could possibly be tackled with the parking, so.
Start talking.
So I'm just curious about you're using a lot of people that.
I'm here, probably 3 to 4 people a week.
And it's not the same people, it's all different people, and is it in certain areas of town?
There are a few hotspots, but it's generally everyone's tired of sidewalks being blocked. Fire hydrants being blocked.
Those are illegal parking issues,
But it's still, there's still parking there.
but they're illegal issues that can already be taken care of with. I don't
They
think
should.
make a recommendation.
And they are, Carlos, like citations. One of the things, just again, is a refresher. So with respect to parking, we allow parking on the street, and I think there seemed to be a consensus. We weren't gonna. There wasn't a silver bullet for that right away. However, I've had the fire chief and several others that have expressed concerns over hotspot areas. It also seemed to be high concentration short-term rental areas, so to combat the double whammy. So one idea is that, rather than try to, eat the elephant one fell swoop, is that we take it in bites, and perhaps we look at certain areas that we start with. I think the chief and I had already talked on a few occasions about those hotspot areas from a safety standpoint, not as a punishment to any short-term rental, but just as a safety recommendation for both the fire chief and the police chief. So I throw that out there, just a possibility. Obviously, council will direct us, or the city manager to direct us if we take that approach, but it is one way to, to maybe at least start somewhere on the street issue. And then that's just one aspect.
Besides hotspots, obviously, like you said, they're illegal, but we have, what you said, they have more pressing issues and someone blocking a fire hydrant or parking the sidewalk. But it all comes down to a lot of times there's not enough, on street park, on site parking. That seems to be one of the big issues, especially as I've driven around town throughout the year, looking at different areas, looking at what's going on. Yes, there are some that hotspots, but
Well, it seems to me that there's legal street parking and there's illegal street parking, right? And so are we trying to eliminate the illegal street parking? Or are we saying that there are areas of town where there is legal street parking that we need to eliminate the legal street parking?
yes, there are some of those areas too, where there's double parking down both sides of the street, making it almost impossible for an ambulance or fire engine to get through.
And so you're. So we have a good understanding. You're referring to like overflow parking from short-term rentals
Yes.
that can't park their own,
Right.
that are flowing on
Yes.
overnight.
What are those spots? Give us an example of a hotspot.
Sandy
Oh, Rick's neighborhood,
Yeah.
Sandy Lane.
Anchor Drive,
Anchor Drive.
which is a public street.
So what do you do?
So there's options of where we restrike the streets,
The whole street or one side or the other?
the whole,
And how do you decide?
one side,
One side?
at minimum one side.
That would be in conjunction with. Police, essentially, the chief has authority over those areas. Keep in mind, we already have a list in our code of ordinances, certain streets that are already listed have been forever, that there is no street parking. You know, so the precedent for that is already set, and it's areas around the school. So. There was a recognition that some areas just weren't, even though we allow street parking, we say that, but there's some areas that we never have in recent history. And some that you so choose, we can add to that list. Right?
I think areas where it's unsafe to park on the street definitely need to be looked at. Red stripe or no parking zones so that we don't have unsafe issues. But if the issue is that we don't have enough parking, it doesn't seem like a valid solution to start taking parking away from the town.
But some of the areas that you read, some, what you just said, is a result of the short term, a high concentration of short term rental that create that situation.
And I think going back to limiting the occupancy on the rental based on the amount of parking they have available is a valid. You know, if you have a house that sleeps 20, but you only have 3 parking spaces, that obviously needs to be looked at. I don't think taking away the street parking is the answer.
So you're saying that when you have a narrow street, parking both sides of the street, you can't get an ambulance through. You can't get a fire truck through, that's okay.
No, on a narrow street, on a case by case basis, those need to be looked at, and the fire marshal needs to say, hey, there's not enough room to get by here. We need a red stripe one side or both sides of that street. But we can't take an overall approach with the whole city and say anybody who has a street where the residents are not happy, we can redline every street in town. Because we're gonna reduce the amount of parking overall, and it's only gonna exacerbate the problem that we have.
I mean, you look at Galveston, South Padre, they've already done that. They've already, I mean, it's,
So don't they have a lot of public parking available?
they do it.
They have a lot of.
And a lot of paid parking on the.
Yeah,
A lot of paid.
They got haters, you know, a little bit of, we're about to have ourselves, right?
Right, yeah, that's something that's.
It's our $1 million parking lot there.
Well, for 150 to 60 spaces that still remain.
You know, you start, I'd be willing to bet if you went down around town on a Saturday night, when it was in July. And started moving the cars that you could move. Be probably about 150 cars that would cover the hot spots, I would think. It's not like a big blanket, and and obviously, Little Sands, Mustang Royale have, you know, those houses were built. And they follow some pretty good guidelines
They've
for
dealt with it,
parking.
yeah.
And so they don't seem to have a problem with no parking on the street.
And again, unlike Galveston, you know, our situation, again, even though it's manifested itself, I still kind of call it an explosive growth. I mean, even though it may have happened over 10 years, it accelerated. I mean, the 10-year period has kind of gone like this. So I say this a lot. I think that the desire is to steer the ship. We got to recognize we didn't get into this issue overnight. And again, street parking, we hear it a lot, and we're not going to get out of it overnight, but we chip away at it. I agree that I got 3 councilmen. I don't, depending on their pleasure, I just don't think you come in there with a magic bullet, you shut down all street parking, period. That's why I really like the approach that was suggested, that we look at those hotspots based on safety. And we add those to the list. We read striping, but essentially we add them to the list that already exist, the areas that just aren't safe to park and. Obviously, there's always gonna be somebody that's not gonna be happy, but it's not a decision based on a punitive approach. It's just it's a pure safety issue. That's a good place to start it. It's the low hanging fruit. The other thing I'll throw out too is that, I didn't understand this when I first moved here 30 years ago, but not allowing garages to count. That just was crazy to me because I came from San Antonio and I used my garage. But it quickly became clear to me that the reason is that Fort Aransas people take their fishing stuff, you know, their boats, now golf carts, in the garage, it would never be available. And as those houses have shifted more towards rental, the dynamic of using that garage for everything other than parking is still there. But I think it's something that can be looked at somehow for those houses that weren't subject to the new parking regulation, which helped. Maybe it wasn't even enough when we made one parking for every, but it helped. But there's a whole lot that didn't have to, it wasn't retroactive. And a lot of those houses have now converted to short-term rentals. They weren't short-term rentals and now they are too. So it kind of exacerbated itself. So I think maybe there's something to be done if that's your pleasure to.
I think the
Take
garage,
the compromise with a little bit and make somebody that doesn't have, that didn't fall into the new parking. If they choose to, you know, clean the garage out and make it available. Carla's touching Carla and Laura are touching every property as they renew, every registration, so they have the chance to look. And we're gonna hammer, talking about parking, we're gonna hammer those stilt houses that have in the ordinance that have displaced parking with picnic tables and recreation type things. It's wonderful. I don't want to take that away, but they were built with required parking that's now being displaced. And guess where those cars are? So those are the things that we can do, Adam. I mean, that we will do. Highest priority at one point, no. But with the understanding now that it is, you know, we can start to crack down on those things. So.
I mean, Adam brought up a point on, you know, occupancy based on the amount of on-site parking. So, I mean, let's talk about that a little bit.
I think that's
I mean,
the pink elephant. That's how you come up with that.
I think you've got to be very careful.
I do.
But what you've been worried about is taking occupancy away from what we know they have. For someone.
Yeah, what I worry about is that if you really have a house that can sleep so many people, you mandate if they can get there in 2 minivans. You take that option away from them. You know, if they got 2 parking spaces, but a house that sleeps 20 and they can get there. It's a conundrum. I don't have the answer,
And also, like I said, if you sleep 6, let's say you have a 3-bedroom and it sleeps 10, and you want to reduce it to what, 6? Is that what we're saying? Or
At the minimum, but anywhere.
let's say it has 2 parking spots, so you want to reduce it down to what, a 2-bedroom can sleep, I guess. I mean, you can still get individuals coming from different locations that can also bring their own vehicles, so you could still end up with 6 cars. I really don't think. Make it impact.
Just don't know, looking at the whole picture, that you can say, reduce the occupancy will solve the problem. Because you do have these, you know, situations where the owners are not renting, they have the same problems. And in fact, I mentioned that the last time we had a call from the hotline and it was an owner. And it was like, what am I gonna do when it's the owner? Call and say, hey, can't have those cars, and just called the HOA, decided they wanted to get involved with, through us, the owner. But we can't even really regulate occupancy right now. I mean, we had, short of walking up there and saying, all right, meet everybody outside, then we count heads. We have no really recourse other than marketing, which is the same thing we can do with parking, is maybe take a stronger look at our marketing of when they book the property that says there's 2 spots only. And you have to follow that. There will be opportunities to park in an overflow paid-for parking spot. It might not be close, but it is available. But I think our marketing up front has to be more proactive than trying to do something after this situation, once they get here.
I think we need both. And with the planning enforcement, chief, people are gonna figure out that, yeah, they tell me the things about that important house.
Now, we definitely need something on there, you know, in Port Aransas, maybe there's some kind of seal that, you know, this property meets this approval that you could be asked to depart without a refund if you violate any of these particular ordinances laid out by the city.
Could we also put the number of approved parking spots on the sign? So it's obvious when you buy it.
Whatever you direct us to do, I mean, we are gathering up, I mean, there was a conflict, right, like, but we asked for, wanted more data, so we are now, as our property managers can test, asking for the floor plan, and parking plan, so that we know how many parking spaces.
What does the
They have
floor
now.
plan
Number
do?
number of bedrooms.
Because they can't count.
Well-
They count something to do with it.
Yeah.
And
Because
they're out there, they're doing it.
Correct, but now, okay, so
Because we've been asked to tell you how many rooms there are.
I know, so, I mean, once again, we're going, and we're gonna affect 90% of the things being done right, because we've got 10%. Or 5 or 3 or 2, and we're trying to catch it. Why don't we just go after those 5 or 10 and work on those? Because the right people are gonna do the right things.
We're happy that we were directed to be able to tell you how many rooms there were and how many parking spots there were with short-term rentals. Obviously, the only way we can get that data to you is ask people.
But I mean, we're not asking for an architect to draw.
No, not really.
We're asking them to sketch it out, which means
Which is
tedious
tedious and long.
but if they sketch this out. I just sketched out a 10-bedroom.
How long do you think that would take for 410?
So it's in time and then.
50% of these things, that's not good.
So new construction, that helped the older properties, new construction. If we had plans, that's a lot of work on our
You
part.
gotta go match them up.
But if it's new construction, then there's probably an architect or designer involved. I know having just built a place. If I reached out to my designer and said, hey, can you PDF me my floor plan? I paid him a lot of money. I'm sure you would. So that's a solution for owners. I mean, it's a step. But it takes, if the goal is to take it off you, the owner's the only
No,
other
it's not.
person, the new
The owner's
construction.
not gonna do it. I'm gonna promise you, they're not gonna touch it. That's our problem. And if That's
It
what
just
we
feels
have
like
to do.
it's
That's
getting
what we have
harder
to do.
and harder and harder on the property managers. who
This
are
isn't
trying
something
to
we
do
made up
everything
for
the
more
right
work
way.
for us. So just.
But I also, let's not do things just to say, yeah, we have it. Because that's not gonna do us any good. Let's do things that we can truly measure and act upon. And this, to me, seems like another exercise that we're gonna do. Like we've done a few other things that we do, but there's real no action behind it. You see what I'm saying? Because this is monumental amount of work that it takes. So what we're doing, we're paying $12.99 over $5,000 to get floor plans on every single property. That's not a hard thing to do, not a huge cost. I'm willing to spend it. But the parking plan for the parking spaces, different ballgame. There's no drawing, and so we either take and create and I think what Josh was sending in was not approved, so we need to understand what's that gonna look like and what do we need to do to create that parking plan.
I
We
mean,
just
what-
need
You can
something
take
that
a
shows.
site plan and draw on there where.
flexible as you can be, I did anything,
You can
survey.
take a Google Earth. Put them
That's
down
what we
on
did.
Google Earth.
No, but he didn't put measurements and he didn't mark.
So is it not measurements?
They
Well,
have to be 9 by
we
8.
just gotta ensure they're 9 by 18, that otherwise they're flown out in the street and if those park.
That'll park a Ford F-250.
But again,
I'm like.
going out there and measuring, walking off all that stuff,
We can measure it. Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, we're not trying to make it
I get it.
burdensome, and it's what we've been asked Yeah, so the only way we can get it,
Don't ask you, don't ask unless you're gonna do something. That's all I'm saying.
for inspection though. You're the, you
walk it off?
Good, will that help you having that floor plan in hand when you go to do a short-term rental inspection? I mean, that, you know, and the hope is once it's
It's
done, I mean,
up what's here, what's in the house.
it's a heavy list initially.
Then you don't have to do it, you don't, not like you have to do it every year.
It's still a question about that, so what about the registration form, like? For my ones that are registered for last year, that are still with me, nothing's changed, you're telling me I don't have to do a new form this year. And you're telling me I won't have to do a new parking plan next year.
You shouldn't have to, since it's already there.
It should,
It'll
all the
get better.
stuff should already be filled in. If it's not like that, let us know. That's what they indicated to us, that renewals will have everything filled in. And then the renewals will already have your parking plan for next year, already have your parking plan, your floor plans, unless something's changed.
But there'll be some new fields, a few
Yeah,
new
there's,
fields, right?
the con, or there's some reason they didn't put condo on there, but it's single family ADU and one more selection that you need to choose from in the AC square footage.
But it should set up to maybe just start focusing on the 75 properties that had complaints levied against them through the official hotline. You know, I know, Tim, you brought up the fact that you're getting called 3 to 4 times a day. Do you feel 3 to 4 times a week? Do you feel like that's accurately represented in the data that the software companies are collecting right now? Because it seems like if we only have 75 complaints, that's a fraction.
That's 75
That's
through
calls.
the hotline, not through code enforcement or the city. So the correct question to ask is, how many complaints does the city get? Because then that includes anything that's the city department or there, as opposed to the hotline. Because we all agree 68, 70 over 30,000 nights a year is statistically insignificant.
Guys, so what I was explaining to Councilman Christians, so the vast majority. Carla, Laura will get a call, say, hey, my next door neighbor trash is overflowing. I'll make a phone call, and we'll get on it, she'll verify. That whole process, probably less than 30 seconds, and it's done and it's resolved. People ask, well, why can't we get a total number of complaints we actually have? That resolution to log and actually document would probably take several minutes, which doesn't seem like a lot of time.
If it's resolved, then it's-
Except some people have asked, well, we want to know all those complaints.
As
And that's what we're told to do, that's what we'll spend our time doing, but that's the vast majority of complaints we get.
But if that's 3 times or twice a week on a particular property, now we have chronic habitual issue. And that habit has to change, and so it needs something. So the one that happens and you're like, I don't even know where your house is, done. But knowing that in a month, I've got 15 complaints called in directly.
But it doesn't have, I think, God, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we could probably count on one hand. In several years that we've really been focusing on this, that there's one property that's had more than one. You tell me.
I mean,
It's rare, because the people change, and it's not the property. It's the little people with the legs that go in the property. You know, they're the ones that have a whole lot of trash and a lot of Domino's pizza boxes and they overflow. They're not the ones that are next to you. You know? So it's very
But
rarely the
management
same.
company with overflowing trash cans to do something about it. Right?
Yeah.
Some will. And some won't.
most.
Okay. And that's what we want to have. You don't have a overflowing trash can. That's why you carry those
And a
contract
24/7
bags
contact number
in your car.
and a 1 hour response. And again, as I mentioned at the meeting last night. You guys told us 0 tolerance,
Right.
0 tolerance. You know, 1 hour and 2 or 3 minutes, whatever, it's not resolved. They're getting a citation.
And since the city has shifted towards 0 tolerance, don't you feel like you're having some positive effects as you enforce controls? Probably more so than you might have enforced in the
Absolutely.
past. I mean,
I can tell you there's not nearly as many trash cans being left out as there was.
I know, I know.
but, so for time's sake, so by enforcing the rules, can we make argue that works? Maybe it's working.
Yeah, but for time's sake, we've already taken that off the table because we have trash and noise and all those things are really non-issues in the scheme of things. I use that as an example because it's how a lot of the complaints go. They're resolved that fast, and it doesn't have to be trash, it's anything, you know. It's something park, any kind of code enforcement. Most of those are resolved in a matter of a phone call, so that's why they're not logged, so.
For parking, when you go to a lot of other resort tourist type places that have narrow streets or crowded, dense, home sites. The way they do it is you check into a house and you get 2 parking placards. I don't care if it's 5,000 square feet. You get 2 parking placards, period. In the store, that's it. So. If we want to regulate parking, because that's the problem without regulating occupancy, which I don't agree with, I don't think we should just start slashing everybody's occupancy because we think they're only bring too many cars. Then, if parking is the issue, then say, you know what, if you're an STR, everyone's gonna get 2.
2 for off-street or off-site, 2 for the street.
2 period.
But if you've got a parking lot, it's kind of part of that.
Well, but I mean, here's my point, is that, because most houses are gonna have parking for 2, right? I mean, I don't care if it's a 1,500 square foot still house
Everybody
or
should
a
have at least.
5,000 square feet house, it's gonna have at least parking for 2. So you get 2, that's what everybody gets 2, and it's up to the rental management companies to say, I'm so sorry, these are the Port Aransas rules, we don't have enough parking in town. You get 2 spots, that's it, that's all you get to bring, 2 cars. And if they say, well, my house is 5,000 square feet and I have, 6 bedrooms and I've got parking for 6, then that's when we say, okay, prove it to me.
I like that.
Prove it to me. Okay, if your house is big enough and you've got parking for 6, give me your parking plan. Otherwise, you're just gonna get 2. And if we drive by your,
You give them 2, and so they use their 2, but they actually bring 4, and they're usually parking the street.
then when you drive by and they don't have the parking, they
We
get
don't
2.
know.
But the fly in the
Only
ointment,
on the street. What if
we
it's
allow street.
But if it's the neighbor across the street who's having a birthday party, who's private park there, unless,
There,
because
like-
we allow street parking and it's legal. Unless everybody was required to have a placard, you can't enforce. it.
And I understand that, but
If
that's,
you can limit street parking from 11 p.m. to 6 a.m.
yes, you
And that would
can,
handle your birthday parties and stuff
right,
like
you
that.
can do that in general, but I mean,
That's
it's,
just a lot of work for you guys.
but the whole, I mean, and I agree with you, I mean, that's the problem, but that's the whole argument with the whole thing, right? Just like anything, even a homeowner can be trashy, can be noisy, can have a lot of cars, but we're making, for this, small, still, like to Dale's point, this kind of small group of properties, but if you want to blame it all on STRs and make an STR rule, then start with, something simple that everyone has to play by.
I feel like we need a lot of time.
You don't want to mess with our parking plan? Yeah,
I mean,
that's perfectly fine. We're actually doing park,
Everybody just be happy
but we're
to-
just having to figure out.
Yeah.
Because you could.
Because there's no-
but if you tell somebody that there's rules, like, it's one thing just to say, hey, check in, yeah, 4 bedrooms, great, and, we don't have parking, so, I mean, if we do, we don't. But if you give them something additionally, to hold to them, it's no different than saying you can park in that lot, but you gotta have a sticker, right? It makes people more accountable, it makes people more responsible to know, oh God, I got this placard, and if I don't hang my placard up, and if I have 4 more cars show up, I might get a ticket. I mean, I think it's the behavior that we have to change, it's not the house. It's the behavior, right? It's the person, like you said, it's the person who's walking in and who wants to be trashy, wants to be loud, wants to bring 6 cars and break the rules. So give them something more to follow. I mean, we're putting signs up everywhere. So why not give them 2 parking placards that say, here are your 2 parking placards? And, or 3, or whatever seems, I'm just picking a number, but I mean, at least it would eliminate some of the work that goes into You know, and
I would tell you
I'm
that-
just driving the street. if
Yeah,
that's-
I'd rather do the parking plan
Yeah.
than to deal with those parking permits. Cause
Yeah.
those are not, we do them, I can't tell you how many places we do them, and it's interesting that our mix is about 140 and 270. 270 are townhouses, condos. We have more parking problems there than we ever do on those 140 standalone houses.
Really?
By far. I mean, it's not even close. You go to Beachside. Oh, yeah, that was a great idea. They should deal with the HOA. Yeah, sure. Yeah, but again. Yeah, that's. But that is where we tend to have more problems. You go to Meridian. What a nightmare.
Meridian was a mistake. I think it was a mistake.
And even the commons is not, when we draw up parking plans for the commons, we manage 20 units out of 30. There's not enough for more than two and some overflow, that's about it. And same way at Beachside, so all these particular complexes, they make a bigger challenge for us. And then those cars wind up somewhere else.
Well,
most likely.
we talked about how Village Walk is really good.
Yeah.
But I have people that park in front of the lot next to my house on Sand Key because they can't park in Village Rock.
Oh.
There's no parking, so they come over and park on my street. So even though it's being controlled, it's still, there's cars are going somewhere.
Is
I
it,
think we need more public parking.
is it fair that all advertisements should say how much space there is on property and stuff, like in the comments, if we get two spots,
Exactly.
and even to the point, don't bring a boat, no boat park.
We even put in there many times where we do not have a parking permit. Parking permit will be required to maximum. And it slows it down because we marketed it as such before they rent it.
Right.
It's not this other part. If we put signs up, that's good.
That's after that.
That's after the fact. They're here, you got the quality. And so I think that. My mind is that you try to put things in place because we're all marketing these things on every website you can imagine. And we make it very consistent that says. Parking permit could be required or is required, and then when they get here, they find out, oh, I have to have it, but they've already made their decision and adjusted the number of cars. And I think that creates a situation that eliminates some of the
Are you
problems.
seeing success on your signs or?
They apparently have had a couple calls on these because they have 5 instead of 4, but I put less on some of them, even though they accommodate more, just as a deterrent, and I feel like it's.
I can tell you, I've driven by and I haven't seen any issues.
And if they put it in the garage, they can do it in the yard.
Yeah,
How many vehicles
so
are?
when I printed my new signs to meet the new requirements, I went ahead and added vehicle max and.
But it
Like,
also help the neighbors.
And to Dale and Steve's point, I mean, that was one of the. That was one of the reasons that I think. They wanted us to start gathering the parking space numbers, because again, for all the players that are gonna do it right. We have no way to catch the ones that are, if we go to a mandatory advertising part, which I think is a great idea. Mentally, it hopefully changes that paradigm. We have no way of enforcing that or even knowing. Scrubbing can easily, those are the easy ones to take out. But if we don't know what we're comparing it to, we don't have that data in there.
But if they park on the street.
Now,
Now, nice car.
But again, if our marching orders are, we're told, the council tells us, okay, add that to the list of requirements. You gotta advertise parking spaces, and whatever that number is, whatever that formula is. It's meaningless unless we have some means to compare that, like everything else, if we're not. Comparing the number of bedrooms and the advertising.
Are you meaning advertising the parking spaces only on the
On
side?
your platform.
Put out.
No, on
On
the
the
website.
website, yeah, just like you do on.
But that make the requirement that it's in the listing description, like the first paragraph.
Ours, and then there are usually sometimes 2 different times, early and late. Just like we put the bedroom count, and where we put the STR numbers, we put all that stuff in there. But actually, the headline up there, you will see parking parking for free, parking.
Sure,
We
but
put that
that's the point, you're saying that you do it correctly, probably everybody at this table does it correctly.
I think
So let's be honest, then where's everybody else in town?
So y'all started.
Why
y'all
aren't
set
there,
the
why isn't
standard.
everybody here at this meeting to be accountable?
Y'all set the standard. If everybody puts in 4 parking spaces, I mean, I understand 2 and go for it, but if you've got parking for 6. Say you have parking for 6, why? That could bring a vote. You know, if you have. And a golf cart, because then you end up, they bring everything, what we're seeing. Is they bring their vehicles. And then they got 4 golf carts,
Well,
and they're all over the place.
there's the other rain on the
So-
parade.
so I've
I haven't
always
gotten
thought-
there yet.
I always thought, I got so many feet to park. A boat goes there, your golf cart goes there, whatever your vehicle is. I had properties where I had to measure 41 feet. You got 41 feet. That's what you have. If your truck and boat is longer than 41 feet. Can't help it.
And I think to the point, a lot of us try very hard to do the right thing and spend a ton of money doing, it. And then. Not saying there's others that don't, but you know, we have our private security, we talked about that before. Those guys are told to look for several things. Parking issues with a lot of extra cars hanging in the street, blocking the sidewalk. Let's, you know, get that addressed. We look at noise. Those guys are to roll down the window, their lights are going, they're looking for potential noise complaint, which over occupancy usually is involved. And so they do all these things. And then we provide the guests with what not to do, because we get so many calls. We see it only allows 2. And we had one lady that was doing our descriptions, and she was overzealous as anybody. Oh, we knew there was at least 3 or 4 shows, but 2 max, you know, and people would call and go, hey, we have 1 extra, what can we do? And we provide alternatives, but at the end of the day, and it could be all those problems are ours, but I'm too blind to know it, but I think a lot of us go to extreme measures to make sure we're good citizens and make sure that our guests are as good as possible. And we just need to create a standard that this is what we need to be doing. Because this year, I'm probably gonna have 2 vehicles on the road at night, driving around, looking for these problems, you know, to help out chief's problems with his, you know, police force, and let them do what they should be doing. And let us be servicing the guests and providing security for our guests in some manner, but also to let them know we exist and that we're watching. I just think there's gotta be more marketing.
Let me ask you this, so. Kind of taking Mayor's idea a little bit. In the parking plan, if we're, unless we get directed otherwise, we're gonna continue to ask you for parking plans, but let's say we get those and your parking plan has 4 spaces, yours has 3. What if we use that as, great, thank you, that's what you advertise, instead of just making it a one size fits all. I think there's still some dialogue that could be had with the garages, but if we're doing the parking plan, maybe that's what's advertised. And that's where we start, you know. Obviously, the street parking is another issue. Just what you have there is tackle a little bit more difficult. You already talked about our hotspot areas. Seems like there's no disagreement that, you know, you're willing to let fire chief and police chief kind of start with those areas, which are gonna be short-term rental concentrated areas. I mean, what do you?
They need to look at life safety issues. We need to use our data.
Agreed.
We need to use our data to drive, especially other points. There's a life safety on ours is a short term.
Well, what I'm saying is, we've got to start somewhere. We're not going to unravel it in one fell swoop with a bunch of rules, but if we start with the advertising piece. Again, which we have to have the parking plan to know what we're comparing it to. And it may not be any of the people at this table, but the other part that I worry about, and we're up to the challenge, we'll deal with it, they're up to the challenge. Take it voluntold, we have to challenge. Is the individual owner operators.
Yes.
You know, because I have no doubts that there will be a significant number of those that will advertise whatever they feel is in their financial best interest. And they're gonna be held to the same standard. There's no, I'm adamant about that. They should have, they should be held to the same standard and play by the same rules. So I think
made it a rule, I don't see any reason why they would have a reason not to comply.
that's just not been our experience.
We've talked about limiting parking and we've also talked about limiting occupancy, but why don't we talk about also incentivizing owners and managers to create more parking, whether it be through the garages or expanding the driveways or
I think all of
opening up underneath the home to park under. So instead of saying, hey, we're trying to limit your ability to rent, or we're trying to limit the number of cars that come here. We're more trying to incentivize you to create other ways to park cars off of the street.
I haven't heard anybody that's saying that they're trying to limit. I mean, I think they're just trying to, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm just hearing is that if there's a concern, is if you can't park them, you can't bring them. I mean, and that's, they're still gonna bring them, but the idea is how do you minimize that? And part of it is, well, let's tell them how many they've got. Let's try that, again,
I
I'm
feel
also,
like everybody, I do that, all
Yeah.
my advertisements say, 4 spots, 2 spots, 1 spot in the golf cart, not just the sign. But in my description, and I feel like most property management companies
And where it's really,
specify it,
you'll see the word strictly enforced.
yeah.
We use that, but also we already have occupancy. That's kind of a core thing that we've done for years. Max occupancy is 8, 9, 10, whatever it is, it's in there. It'd be that hard, which we already do it. For us, we really is to put vehicle limits in there as well. And let people make their decisions on where they stay based on those rules. Most people will try to follow the rules. And I hate to be a rule breaker. I know that I've got. I don't even like to go with my wife when she takes the little muffins at Jason's Deli and go. I'm like, you gotta eat that here, and so
doesn't say that.
maybe it doesn't, that's my way I feel about it. I think it's important that we try these measures and go after the low hanging fruit.
Yeah, that's right.
The good people will do the right thing, because it's not all bad people that are parking in the street, but if we just give them, and really the parking that's allowed and shown on that listing should not include any street parking whatsoever. It should be strictly what will fit in the driveway or in that properties, and leave it at that. Try it, see what happens, and put it, strictly enforced by whatever you want to say. But I think you will find you will eliminate a lot of the issues and make that something that we require every listing on Airbnb, VRBO, Booking.com, all of our individual websites. That is something that's mandated, that it shows on all of them.
I think not trying it would be a horrible loss, but
So Tim, that's one of our recommendations.
Yes.
Council, I guess, requiring that.
Which includes
what do you guys
golf
think?
carts, golf cart trailers,
Any
boats.
golf cart is a
The
vehicle.
word
It's a spade. And so the trailer, it's a spade.
And then, obviously we have to change the ordinance because right now they're not, we can't use a
Yeah,
garage.
what do you guys think about that? I mean, if it's a.
So we need to change ordinance to allow garages, but I think that's, hearing y'all, that's one of the things is.
Allow
What
it
if on a case by case basis, like if your driveway only fits 2 and you have a 4-bedroom, but you do have these garages, then they can advertise for it if they clean your garage out and you come and. It's but
if they include that as a parking
instead of
plan, it's
maybe
gotta be.
everyone,
Lose $200 a night in revenue, they'll probably just clean your garage.
Exactly.
I would.
Not only just the garage, but you need creative ways the owner can find to park cars on their property. Whether that be making the driveway wider so you can fit 3 rows instead of just 2. Or under the house where you had a picnic table, you clear that out and you let people park under the house. Whatever your parking plan allows for, it can be checked and verified on the inspection.
Tim's point is the ordinance doesn't allow.
Garages.
You don't count the garage right now.
So we have to do an ordinance change for that.
But I think you would have to, don't make that lip service that says, oh, yeah, you can't do that, people do it, but I think it would be a situation where I think what you would say is, upon inspection, we find it's not available, we issue that fine. And-
The garages?
Yes.
Yeah, we would write that in there.
Yeah, so it would be no like, oh, well, I just put that in there for the day.
No, I mean, this,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's consistent with us having to crack down on the under structure parking
Yeah.
too. It's all the same thing. It's, you know, we already have that, you know, the Kansas place for car parking. But I think that's just a good compromise. And the other thing too, that with the kind of the sideline though, that for those people that may look to their property and okay, well, I've got this green area that I can pave over and use for parking because it's financially in my best interest, I think that require, incentivize them to consider other means for an improved surface, which can still be the cool old tire strips,
They don't mow.
pervious. Well, I'm just trying to keep,
They were gonna find us for not mowing.
trying to keep away from the, you know, paving over everything. That's the conundrum. We require them to park it, but the parking we require to be improved, and normally that's concrete or asphalt, but it doesn't have to, it doesn't have to be, so.
Well, and I think if you have a house that has limited parking and you know it, or it's in one of those hot spots where there's consistently parking on the street. And I think that's where it's up to real property management owners, homeowner, whoever, to really advertise. Hey, we're gonna give you a $10 coupon to go park your car in the new paid for parking lot over by the fair. You know, something like that, because otherwise they're gonna be like, well, why am I gonna drive up there? I'm parking, my house is on 11th Street. I don't wanna park my car by the fair, because I'm telling you, that's gonna happen.
Or better yet, let us just buy a few lots, a few pieces. Let us actually lease it for the year.
Those are decisions above my pay grade,
Yeah.
but part of it is it's a public asset, it's a public resource.
But if we're
So
gonna,
we would be paying,
right,
and that's what we want to provide a good, safe environment for our guests. An alternative, because it used to be, go park on the beach.
Yeah.
It's only $12 for that pass for the year. So park on the beach.
No more than 3 nights.
Yeah, and so that used to be what was always told. And now we have different, you know, we send them over behind our fence and our lot over there. Because Village Walk is right across the street. Village Walk is probably the toughest place in town. We have a 5-bedroom with 2 parking spots. And so we tell them, hike across the street, it's about 90 yards, you're all good. But we're always looking for solutions, but parking is probably, if not at houses so much, but parking at these complexes.
Pirates Bay, beach side.
It's brutal.
It's not the big, like C-Sands, we never have a problem with parking at C-Sands.
Beachside, oh, it's nice parking my spot. So when I have an HOA says, hey, I want a dedicated spot. That is one of those things where you just like, oh, please don't do that to us, because then you're knocking on the door and you really don't have a lot of options.
So the house with 5 bedrooms and 2 parking spots, you put in the listing that it has.
Oh, yeah, spots.
And do you find that people still bring more than 2 vehicles?
They call.
They call it actually.
They call us and we tell them, and it might even say something in the listing, we do have an alternate parking spot for you, because it's close.
The HOA allows you to advertise it, because I know my 5-bedroom in there, and my other ones I used to have, they came and did an inspection, the HOA inspected it and said, if you were gonna advertise this 5 bedrooms, you have to have 5 spots, so my owners had to clear out their garage.
That's probably them piggybacking on the city's construction.
Is that the HOA?
But they're utilizing the city, if you're gonna go with 5 bedrooms, 5 parking.
I really think leveraging the HOA is solve the problem. I mean, that would fix 50% of the rate, right? But I don't know how you do that unless you 3 striking on the people and the owners say, complaining to the HOA and they've got to do with parking. It'd be interesting to know on the standalone houses, how many of those are even involved in the HOA? It'd be interesting to know if there's any.
What's interesting.
I'm mindful, but I must do my best to make sure it's not in the nature. It's, that is.
Sandy Lane, they don't have an HOA.
No, there's not in there.
But that HOA is doing exactly what was proposed at this table to do, to limit occupancy based on parking, and everyone says, oh, that's a great idea. But let's not do it for the whole city.
Well, I think what you find that Willow Sands, and you'll find it in that market out there, in Muslim Royale. They kind of adopted that early on, and so all the houses were pushed to the back to allow for plenty of parking. And so it's not like where we're running into a situation where the house is already where it is, the parking is what it is. It's a different ballgame.
And that house now is a short-term rental where it wasn't.
And so with our new regulations, it'll be just like Mustang Royale and Willow Sands, to where there's not really major issues. But it's the existing ones that have been here for a while that fell under a different guideline, is where we're gonna see probably most of our problems right now.
Most of the houses in Village have a garage,
Yes.
right? And so, like, what yours, to your point, not all these other places have the big garage and parking, or two garage where you can add to your parking units, so you'd be able to sit on your occupancy. So that would affect them negatively more, so than I think Village Walk really have the garage as an option.
Well, Village Walk has on-site security also, so they catch it, I mean, it takes 5 minutes to control that whole subdivision, but they can catch it as soon as it happens, so it doesn't.
They do.
Fast.
So let's get some takeaways on this one. So if we require the parking plan. They can't finish the registration unless they submit it, right? Sorry. But can we just take that parking plan? And at least to move forward at this point, trust that it's accurate, and then that becomes our basis. If the advertising thing is the way to. The way to go, can we take?
The only problem is that some of them are being submitted and they're just showing a space. They're not showing how many spaces. are in that
But you
space.
don't do that. We didn't give people any coaching at all.
No.
It's okay. We didn't, but are you accepting that, or are you going back and asking for the billing?
Well, we haven't even started, you know what I mean? Just the few that I've looked at, they didn't have.
Can we just say on our registration form, it has 4 spots, and then if you have a question, like when you have a call that there's overparked, there's too many cars or whatever, then you say, okay, we say you have 4 spots, well, I see you only have 3, now you're getting a ticket. You know, instead of us all having to upload these parking tickets.
It's not a new concept. I mean, most cities require this, the floor plans and the parking plans.
We do need to do my approach.
Yeah, no, yeah, I mean, it's the ordinance, the parking space is 9 by 18, yeah. Well, and we're gonna upload probably this one as an example, actually.
Or maybe we take even a more basic one. You're right, that would take, you didn't have anything else to do, you could get that.
I mean,
In 20 minutes, that's a lot for a lot of.
Just did,
Was where it showed me the bedrooms of the,
Right.
there's several in there that it doesn't, just the square with a bedroom here, bathroom, kitchen, living room.
Well, you just require a parking plan.
It has,
But that's only as good, the information is only as accurate as the truthful as the person who's drawing it, right? Like, so.
well, that's why we're checking it.
So why do you need it? Why don't you just leave that first, you know?
You gotta go and check, you should be able to walk in there and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I see 4, which one are you doing 5 on? Oh, it's here under the stairwell. Something. If they're gonna
But, Dale, that's
not
why,
follow the
if
rules,
that's,
they're not gonna follow the rules.
but we've been asked to be able to provide data as to how many rooms, how many rooms there are. Not just units, but how many rooms.
But that could change.
Whatever, everything can be changed. But that's why we're doing it. It's not a matter, we could do it. I mean, you could say, well, don't have the property manager do it, staff does it. That's fine too. Obviously,
I
you understand what happens with that.
You could just put the number of rooms and the number of parking spots rather than drawing it out, is what they're saying. Rather than actually providing a diagram, you could say 4 bedrooms and 6 parking spots. On the form.
It already does, but the other issue is when they go in to do inspections, they can check what the legal rules are. Then they can have that same conversation. Wait a minute, you got a bedroom here and here, I don't see it, it's, oh, well, it's actually over the kitchen. No, it can't be.
What would be the same as going into the house with knowing it's on the form, it says it's a 4-bedroom, and you're walking through the house and you don't see 4 bedrooms, like, you don't need to have the floor plan.
I mean, if that's a method of inspection is, whether you have a form or not, it's coded as a 4-bedroom house and you're doing an inspection, you walk in.
If you fill out your form and you say it's a 3-bedroom house. How many bedrooms? Steve, if you fill out a form, when you say it's a 6-bedroom house, how many bedrooms? If you have 1 bedroom. Okay. I mean, somebody is signing it saying, do.
Well, we were.
I know, we
So-
make recommendations.
So then what I would say then, if we go that route. And who, if the inspection's done and you say you had 3 bedrooms and Carl comes in and has 2 bedrooms. You're automatically paying them. That house becomes because you lied on your application.
Maybe
there's a
somebody
penalty
gets
for
a
that.
first strike.
The penalty-
Get 1 strike.
No,
And a fine.
no, there's gotta be,
There's gotta be due process.
there's a lot of different things where you go.
You have to define a bedroom.
Yeah, bedroom would have to be a minimum of 70 square feet, right?
70 square feet.
Ingress, egress, rescue. opening. Speed, 44 inches and
And air conditioning.
these rules now.
Steve has learned.
Oh. Well, you're just getting somebody telling you, oh yeah, I've got a 5-bedroom and it's. And I'm trying, there's an attic, I can convert it, they put the air handler over and they've got a bed right there. If I think,
There was one on Sandy that
Kara, now it does have a room down there.
used an attic space.
Oh, I think that one.
Well, there is a benefit if the house, say it's at 6-bedroom and the owner applies to the city as a 4-bedroom, saying, hey, I only want to rent this as a 4-bedroom. That's a benefit to the city. What the city is not wanting is if you have 4 bedrooms and you submit it as a 4-bedroom, but then you rent it out as a 6-bedroom because you're counting the sewing room and the nanny playroom as bedrooms. So that again, like we do, our house could occupy up to 8 people, but we rent it as a 4-person maximum occupancy. So we're renting at a lower than our maximum. And I think a lot of people are doing that.
We have those.
Especially the park.
Some owners want something like that. The new house in Roll Sands, they can sleep, I think 3,500 square feet. And it has 5 bedrooms, they go, we just want 13.
So Carla, so if we were given a new marketing order, say scratch the floor plan, what's the disadvantage to you in your job?
I mean, looking at it before we get there gives us an idea of what we're gonna walk into. Like,
But are you at an extreme disadvantage
Yeah.
if you look at the form and they say 4 bedrooms and it's 3? But in what I'm hearing, if they do that.
I mean, then
It's bad, you lied.
there needs to be some immediate consequence for that particular unit, whether they lose their ability to rent for 30 days. I mean, but it's gotta be something serious enough.
Yeah.
It can't be, oh, you get it's a $50
What would
fine.
you want? Y'all or them?
Fine them and say, can't rent until you're back into compliance.
Yeah, I think there should be a fine because.
They put it down on that, but they knowingly lied on an application then.
But we're asking is, if it happened to you. What y'all from the industry think would be fair? Because if you're applying by the rules. You can't make a mistake about a bedroom. There may be a questionable and is a bedroom or not.
And like, where you can't walk through one room, think to the other, like some maybe homeowners who don't have a municipal company or don't know that might make that
That's
mistake.
education.
You know,
That's
so we
education.
don't want them punished forever, you
Yeah,
know?
no, just to do right now, a lot of the contracts people that out there maybe choose that.
But again, that's-
Getting
They're-
paid.
they're-
But again, that's where a unit, all of them would come in, then maybe the city can look at it, and say, oh, that can't be a bedroom because it does, no.
Yeah.
But if someone's willing to lie on the application, they're lying on the drawing. So what difference? Does it make?
Exactly.
You know, the person who's gonna cheat is gonna cheat here, and they're gonna cheat on the form, and they're gonna keep bringing 10 cars every day, even.
Cheating on the HMT taxes.
They're cheating on it.
But then,
We trained to get those guys, because those guys are making a bad example for our cities and the industry.
but it's gotta be substantial penalties that say that with someone here that. Oh my gosh, it was $1,000 fine, and I lost the ability to rent my place for 30 days because of that one thing. People are like, oh crap.
We'll do it right. Sure.
We need, everyone, I'm gonna go back, I need to amend mine now.
I just don't know if you can make it totally black and white, just for the simple reasoning that there is a few, not many, a few properties where people go, oh yeah, I was told that was a bedroom. Oh, I go to Zillow, and
But-
Zillow is probably your.
Here's
Inspector.
what I'll do, I'll have Don, building official, have him draw me up a checklist. And if you
Simple.
can't, if you can't check all of these boxes, 70 square feet ingress, and here's what that
Perfect.
means. If you can't check all of these, it can't be used as a sleeping room, and it needs to be very clear.
Yep.
And everything sleeping oriented be
I
removed
agree.
from that.
Yeah.
So how about that? That's not a, we should be able to, we can do that.
How about when we go forward, I mean, it doesn't address what's here now. But when Bob or Don issues a CO, says it's a 3-bedroom house, and he's just,
But it changes.
It changes.
And on a Friday, late at night, by Sunday, it's now a 6-bedroom.
I didn't know you knew about those.
Yeah, we.
Well, that's why I think the floor plan doesn't help you, because a floor plan, typically, if they're gonna submit it from their building plans, that may say, this
Yeah,
is
you're
a
right.
sitting room, and like he said, by Monday, when they got their shit on Friday, they've already made it a bedroom. That, you know, they're giving you a floor plan from before they even moved in.
Well, as often as houses change hands down here too.
Yeah.
You know, well, they might have gotten a CO as a 4-bedroom
Mhm.
house.
Yeah.
And then they put it in, they put a bed in a closet, and they told the real estate agent that they've got 5 beds, they sold it as a 5-bed. That homeowner's gonna put 5 bedrooms on the.
That master bedroom closset was way too big to use for hanging clothes.
Yeah.
So I think as long as it's the, the checklist,
Yes.
then the applicant has.
Black and white.
absolutely Good reason, then it's a lie, and if they lie, then there needs to be a substantial penalty. I mean, substantial.
What is it? I'm asking,
Well,
what are they?
You know.
if we write a citation, that's not a zoning bill, right? Is it a safety? Only a 500 max.
500 is that number that kind of makes everybody kind of.
Usually be, yeah, that's the
Safe
max,
number.
it's everything.
But I mean,
But
but
it's, yeah, if we can stretch it into a life safety violation as far as not being safe, then it's $1,000. Right.
you know, or they could be subject to, additional inspections, like, we're gonna do random inspections every month.
I don't disagree with any of that. I think that's.
Okay.
Because I mean, listen, if it's really true that there's only a small percentage of all the problems, then this would solve that small percentage. Am I wrong?
No, I'm
Okay.
agreeing.
Okay.
So far, been down, we're gonna, part of the number of spots. On site,
And they have to have fees, and the application will say they must be 9 by 18. Yeah.
And that has to be.
So trust. Verify as best we can, but violators, 0 tolerance.
Zero tolerance.
Immediate.
What is the date for like? When we're new, like, let's say like the bungalows, so you know, they're new construction, 2 years old, whatever, like, am I knowing like those are going to be standard parking spots? Like, yeah, or do I really have to go out? You know what I mean? Is there a year like? You know, construction, like from this point on, they've all been approved by you guys and we know what
Yes,
that their standard.
Well, we started the one for sleeping permit,
But 16?
now. If I got it, 14.
Yeah, I want to say 14.
That way I can like reduce the number that I actually have to go out.
Yeah.
What about places like over off of, what is it,
WJ,
no, off of Roberts and what's the name of that?
Oh,
They got 2 spots. Per. Right behind Salty Dog.
yeah.
Oleander, and what is his name?
only
It's.
Right behind.
yeah,
They're all swished.
That permit was issued way back when. And so they weren't built 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
They still have to have one for sleeping. But
We only have two.
Yeah, when the sleeping room changed.
They have three, no, they have 3 bedrooms, and they have 2 spots.
Then they can only advertise
Rex,
two.
might be.
But
a
it's
good-
Fair for the guests.
But what I was told,
oh, well, you know what, they may be rebuilt.
Well, there was one there.
Their development
built
got-
a long time ago. Yeah, that's that original.
Now it's.
What is that called?
It's.
Where
You can't just-
We got Mercer.
Oh, yeah, Mercer Village was permitted.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Long time, yeah.
yeah, and they built one.
Yes, they only had one.
They built one, that's why they were.
Because that's a, we put it, maximum 2 spots, that's what we have advertised on that particular property, we have one over there. And it's always a thing, and that street is narrow. I mean, people park on both sides of it.
Oleander?
Is it Oleander that goes this way?
Oleander's not narrow.
When you park on both sides, it's,
Well, everything seems small.
Yeah.
But Oleander's it's a
it's
big,
a,
I mean, it's not a main thoroughfare street like Alistair or Cotter, but I mean,
yeah.
for a side street, a arterial street, I think Oleander.
Would you guys recommend we get rid of floor plans and parking plans if we get the dimensions?
But then, like I said, then there has to be substantial.
Yeah, trust but verify, pretty much keeping with what we're doing, zero tolerance is there.
And I agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
And this,
And it won't be a trick, well, like I said, the checklist will be pretty simple, and there's so many things that constitute, a sleeping.
And at the bottom, if you have a question, please contact
Always do that.
this person, just so they don't know,
No,
just
you-
like a parking space, they don't know it's 18 by 9. Which means if you got 4 of them, and you bring Ram 2500, you're not parking in there. Even though you have parking space, you're hanging over.
Yes, number it is.
So,
Well, we did that with golf carts, they're like,
so we should, if we're gonna do that, we should actually have that checklist filled out. I mean, somebody should physically do that. Who's gonna do that?
that's not there, but that could be part of the community rest, I would imagine. We could create if it's, what is it, 5, 6 different parameters?
Let's say 6 gets us where we need to be.
Okay, so if you had those in there as part of checking it off. And then that way it's done online, we don't spend a lot of paper on things that's unnecessary. And it's the same, we sign them the same way. I say we just put it in.
And maybe we don't even
So-
check, maybe we have every bedroom must adhere to these 6, 7. By signing this, you
Attest that these are.
you attest that these, this number meets every one of these criteria. That way you don't have to check anything. You're,
with what the fine will be, let's make it as easy and communicate the best we can. To see how it works, that way if people are getting a whole lot of questions, we know, oh, we need to add some more information. Because we're not communicating well, because then you take away every excuse of, well, I didn't know.
Okay.
Or I was too busy, or something.
But then if we do that, that means the city's not gonna be able to count a sewing room as a bedroom in the longest, right?
unless it meets
Unless it
that.
has a closet and egress of
Right.
certain size, they can probably consider it.
She's got a good point, but also I was gonna bring up, I really think that we should have some kind of a session. As Mark mentioned earlier, these things just spring up on us, and I've had 2 or 3 other property management people will go, hey, did you know about this? I said, well, sorta, and then they said, what about, because I know there was a lot of properties that did get registered last year that should have been registered. Whether that was on them or, but again, I think if you're short of saying you have to have a license to manage in Port Aransas, to have some kind of a class or some kind of a training session that somebody from that operation must come to, so you know that everybody consistently got the message, had the opportunity to comply with that.
It could be actually a video that is created one time.
Proactive. We
Proactive.
want to be proactive.
You know, and that video, watching that video.
Yep.
It counts for, instead of trying to do live sessions for
Oh,
everyone in the
I
audience.
agree. Do one Zoom session, you got a recording and
Yeah,
Send the
I
link.
think we played over and over.
We do have those meetings, you know, a couple
Yeah.
times a year.
But what I'm saying is, but it's a bit, but
He's
it's,
making it a requirement.
yeah, requirement.
So this is gonna be like defensive driving where you have to watch for so long.
The people that do it right have to support the initiative of course, I have to go because I want to be able to do what I do.
But how do you
In
reach
this-
those?
Education.
All the stuff.
I will say this, I had, a property owner who purchased their property fairly recently, who was in a complex. That it was being managed, and that particular complex was not adhering to getting everything registered on time, so that homeowner got a citation because they weren't registered, right? And so, of course, they called the mayor because they thought I was gonna like waive all their fines and, fire everybody at City Hall and all that stuff, and I was like, that worked that way. But, when I listened to him for an hour and a half, literally almost went down the phone. Was like, well, it's not my fault, it's not my fault, no one ever notified me, I bought the property, no one ever notified me I was supposed to register, and I said, well, if we have these rules, blah, 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 well. I just have it in the rental pool, like, the manager's supposed to do all that, I don't understand, you should have let me know, and I'm like, well, it's not our responsibility. But it did make me think, outreach is important, and I think, like, the good people are always gonna try good, but we might consider annually, and I don't think the expense would be horrible, especially since we're making all this money. We might consider annually sending a notification to every registered property owner, period, to make it a bulk mailing, so you're not trying to find those people, but I mean, even if every single registered property owner in Fort Aransas gets a letter or a postcard or something that says, hey, are you considering renting your home? I don't care if they're a rental management company, it's on your own, whatever. If you are, don't forget, you're required by city ordinance to have your property registered. Please contact this, and please contact this number for more information. It may not, it's not gonna be the end all be all, but you might reach those 5 people who really had no clue, and that's always their defense, is like, well, I didn't know, and I'm like, well, you should have known, right? You should have been responsible, but
It's
they.
a business, I mean,
well, and you had a lot of property managers that put it
The property.
bonus spontaneous and said, you go get it registered. They let them do it.
Somebody buys it in.
We did. We did it.
You're not gonna reach every person every time.
What about if we added it, we have the ability to add it to the water bill and every property gets that water?
Yeah, but I don't look at my water bill, it's ACH.
I know, yeah.
I mean, I'm like,
True.
So what you're saying is we're gonna raise water rates, double them, so people start.
Yeah.
yeah.
What's wrong about that?
I'm wondering if the city is possibly entertaining giving a little extension to deadline, since this is all kind of coming at us last minute as far as registering and having to measure these parking spots and fill all this
Sounds
out.
like we're kind of gonna hear that we're gonna get rid of the floor plan or anything else, so then.
But you're making me attest that all this is true, or I'm going to get punished severely, so I want to make sure that I'm doing everything right, and that's gonna take time still, even without a draw floor plan.
Penalized for the owner of the property.
That would be my question too, because
No,
they're the ones
penalize
that are
the-
signing that.
Penalize us, yeah. Penalize us.
There's the designate, I mean,
Yeah.
so you're the
Penalize, you penalize the designated
agent.
agent.
Yeah.
So the owner that self-manages in Lubbock and their designated agent is their
They don't really
housekeeper.
Yeah, that's not an agent.
I know, but where it's filled out in the demographics.
That's the response person. But not the person.
So on the registration, are there 3 places? Owner,
Well, at the bottom, it
That's-
says who's filling this out.
but in
It says
the type
designated.
computer, where does it go?
It's like, it goes to the property.
Okay.
I mean, it does right now, right?
Yeah.
It's just like the person's like, I don't even know what this is.
And I have a lot of owners that have been with me for 10 years, and I do everything for them, they don't know.
We do it all. We don't leave any of it to chance. We don't let the owners do any of it. We do every piece of it, so.
So if
you know,
I,
it's
if I
not-
do something wrong, if I say something wrong, I don't want them to punish it, I'm going.
But again, that means it can't be both ways, I don't think. If you're gonna attest to it, you're the one that has to go in there and check it.
Yeah.
Well, and that's what
I'm
I'm
good
saying,
with
it's
that.
a little bit more time, it's
I'm good with that.
gonna take a while. If you're making me measure parking spots, that's going to take a while.
What was the final number of registered properties? Or this,
We're at 2409 plus.
how far do you think are missing?
That are short-term rentals that just haven't done it yet.
600?
No, that are advertised, that are truly advertising.
That are renting,
Not online yet.
maybe we got another couple hundred, like.
Yeah.
Guess.
Steve, how many? Of them?
Roughly between 5 and 6, I think.
500 or 600.
And
Based
I
on,
use Transparency, is one software, Data is another one. LSI is another tools. I spend over that $2,500 a month on these tools to understand occupancies, rates and all that. And every one of them kind of come back and tell me there's roughly 2,900 to 3,000 in the city.
How are they counting hotel rooms?
I don't think they count. I don't think they're in there at all.
They're paying hot tax.
No, well, they're playing hot tax, but they're actually looking for the ones that are advertising. Those people aren't on Verbo, Airbnb, or Booking.com. This is what most of these are looking at distributing.
What about RVs and RV space?
No. They're not allowed on those sites.
What about how old the advertisement is? Because that's what I've
Well, they
seen.
don't stay out there too long,
It's when they're-
especially on Verbo, because it's $500 a year.
When they're,
Yeah,
when they're scrubbing,
yeah,
it's getting hit.
yeah. These are
As an
pretty.
active account, It's not, it's already been registered under a different account.
Yeah.
So that's.
I still think it's in that range. And when you hear that, you think that, well, there's 200, you're not collecting that HOT tax.
And those are, that many, those are the extra
That's a
cars.
big percentage.
Well,
Of occupancy, because they're not.
we hit a few properties. 25 to almost 30 grand Monday. I mean,
Yeah.
you gotta understand,
No.
we've just started.
In the last, yesterday and today, I've already written 13 citations.
For non,
Short-term rental related.
Yeah, short-term rental.
but not
Not,
registered.
not registered, advertising illegal short-term rental.
Usually it's a trifecta. If you get caught, it's you're not registered, you're advertising, and you're not paying hot tax. So it's a.
and that's from the scrubber,
And you probably don't have your placard either.
and that's from the scrubber, right? Or just.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
But again, with the scrubbing, as I explained it at the meeting last night. Carla, Laura, hopefully our new person, if that's where he or she spent some time, they have to touch every one of those results. Because it'll pick up a name discrepancy. But it's because the property's changed hands, so it throws it out and you gotta check it against NCAT and.
Yeah, you've got now Verbo and I don't know about Airbnb, but they're actually capturing registration, local registration numbers now. There's a space for that. We're trying to start, I guess, working on putting it in Verbo just to have it. But we have a designated way we put that in, just so I can scrub it from our database to go, dang, we don't have the STR number. So I put STR # or hashtag, whichever ATR. And then I put the number. And so I created a program that goes in and says, okay, give me all the descriptions that we have out there today. And tell me which ones it does not find that STR number. And I know instantly, dang, we're not advertising that correctly, because it feeds to all those sites. So I would almost think it would be in the best interest of the group we're working with on software that they predefine this way that we put that number in as a city to make their scrubbing a lot more accurate and a lot easier instead of what they're doing. And that should be the kind of the first thing. Most people aren't going to go, I'll just make up a number and put it out there. They're not going to do that. They're just not going to have that. So if you had a way to go through all those listings and quickly see if they had that SDR.
They are scrubbing for that.
Yeah, but he's saying it's.
STR pound.
Are they whatever way
The city wants it So we can easily identify.
Right, and I can tell you they're scrubbing for it, and I found some that are saying that it's not on there, but it is in there.
Yeah, so they're finding it regardless of the format, because you know, again, you can take a SDR space, hashtag, number, SDR.
format.
I'm just trying to.
Well,
make
but
it
even if
easier.
you do, what I'm saying is. If they're picking up a number sequence and they're comparing it, we may not need to, I don't know, I just don't know how they're.
Yeah.
What their algorithm is, but we can find that out, it's a good question. If they're missing them because of that, but I think they're catching whatever the number is. Comparing it to a registration number, and they're being able to match it up, whether it has STR or not in the. But I'll find out. Now, we've also, while we're on that subject real quick, we've also heard, Carlos tell me that somebody said, well, they're not going to enter STR numbers in- or the
Yeah.
platform.
Yeah, I want to say it was Airbnb
Probably,
It's not-
does have it.
is not gonna allow it.
They're not gonna allow a registration number.
Because
And
they think it's a phone number.
so we can't tell you, oh, okay, that's fine. The ordinance says that you gotta have a registration number in advertising, so just be aware of that.
Well, I think if somebody goes to Airbnb and say, hey, we're looking at 3,000
That's what I,
potential
Yeah.
listings missing from your platform.
3 million, we're not the only city.
Oh, yeah, you go everywhere, they got that. So I just get there, I've got mine.
Okay.
They don't have to do it.
One quick question, Rick, along with what you were saying, we're rates more time gathering information. How does the city anticipate when January 1 comes around and 2,900 SDRs register all at once? How are we gonna inspect 2,900 properties at the same time? Or within a quick amount of time? Or is that just gonna go throughout the year?
It's just gonna go.
It's doing.
It made more sense when you allowed us to trickle in the registration throughout the year rather than making everybody register at the exact same time, because it puts a lot of workload on.
Well, you gotta remember out of that 2,900, I would hope that a whole lot, or the 20, whatever, I hope a whole lot of them are renewals.
But no inspection on renewals?
Not as critical as new property. I mean, the goal originally was to try to touch every property every 2 years. You know, obviously, there's low hanging fruit, you know, we get complaints, violations, those properties will probably get moved up that list. But you can only do so much with it.
So on January 1, you're gonna have 2,500 registrations say for renewals plus whatever new ones.
Well, they've
They're
already
trickling
started,
in.
they've already started.
Any idea how many maps so far for extension?
Well, there's like 73 or 74 right now at pending renewal.
I didn't even know it was open.
I just saw the checks. So I know there was quite a few. Jimmy, you want me to repeat the stuff that sounded like was consensus? I mean, you gotta hurry up and bring items to council.
I mean, as the ordinance change is gonna take 3 readings, like the garage is gonna take 3 readings. no
I
matter what.
understand, you gotta bring any recommendation to the council.
So I mean, there's certain things that, I mean, don't need to, I mean, like, some of the changes, you know, and that.
As far as what we require, we do have the ordinance is written where we have some latitude if we're directed to scrap the floor plan and parking plan for an alternative. We can do that.
Now, probably what we will need to do is an ordinance change for, you know, if you.
I guess I'd rather start with what we're recommending.
So open up the garage. Okay,
So,
so that's one ordinance change. The other one is, you know, if you violate the application process, right, there's a substantial penalty, whatever that might be. So that's gonna require some kind of ordinance change, I believe.
Well, look, I think misrepresenting anything
Yeah.
on the registration is subject to, and I need to go back, I don't have.
But I mean, we need to, I think ordinance change comes into this, how substantial it is.
Okay.
And then the other one was eliminating the parking and floor plan.
That's something that doesn't require,
Are we prepared to recommend that?
I mean, that's something that, I mean,
Or are you just giving it?
that's lateral, that doesn't need council approval, I understand, correct?
Yeah, it's other documents as required.
As required,
Yeah.
so, yeah, so that doesn't need to go to council.
I probably, since I don't recall exactly what body they wanted it when. It'd be nice just to have that corrected, if there need to be an ordinance just to correct it, or to scratch that in lieu of this other. It's okay with you.
Yeah, that's fine.
Outreach on what counts as the bedroom and outreach on to property owners.
Right.
For the parking.
Yeah, and that's what we're talking about that.
And we'll have the police. And fire department take a look at what's right.
Right, that's something that is just, that's automatic.
And that'll be brought to irrespective of short-term rental recommendations, I think, Chief, right? It'll just be, we've talked about it anyway. That'll be a life safety fire related issue we'll bring to council for consideration, just these areas. But I can tell you, they'll be, we know that they're gonna be in areas that right now during the summer are short-term rental hotspots. That's where it's gonna, I know some of them are gonna be there, but it'll be, not taken.
Making it a requirement to list the number of parking spots you have in the online listing. Is that an ordinance or is that just
That's just, I think we can do that. It's other items that the administrator
And requirement of adding the SDR number, so, whether in the listing. Even if there's not a space for it.
Yeah, it's already.
Yeah, that's just a check. That's just a check on the format. And you're capturing it rather regardless of the format.
The checklist from. What's
Yeah, the checklist will be part of. It will be in lieu of.
Not required, just. Everybody knows this is the checklist on how I count.
Right.
Okay.
This is the it'll be, rather than checklist, we'll call it criteria.
We don't want more paper
Considering-
that's gotta be scanned.
No.
Somebody mails them.
Yeah, when they attest to the number of bedrooms, they're attesting that each of those sleeping rooms, correct me, sorry. When they attest to the number of sleeping rooms, they attest to meeting all of these criteria, we'll list the criteria. And I think there's maybe 5 or 6. Size,
It's not much.
size, ingress, egress, not just the basic ones.
Blazing.
Now, that's for a sleeping room. We recognize the ordinance says that. And it's forever and ever, living rooms that have a pull-out sofa have always been able to be used for people for that +4 or 5. It's not considered a sleeping room, but. Those are, we're not precluding those. They're just not counted as a sleeping room. Which is how the occupancy is calculated based on bona fide sleeping rooms, so. We always allow the +4, but living rooms aren't counted in that respect. But they are allowed to have a fold-out sleeper sofa, and they've always been used for the. It doesn't change the occupancy, but it's, we understand that's what's done.
Is there anything where the city promotes? Having like a Crime Stoppers. In Port Aransas.
Seems like a neighborhood watch
No,
type thing, or.
I could call
this
it
is
in.
me going to the extreme. A Crime Stoppers with a reward for illegal short-term rentals. Where
Give you a little red beret and let you.
No, but I'm just saying, as this is an issue, people continue. Why wouldn't they just say? Let us know if there's somebody, because this is gonna, look how long it's taken and we're still finding, and there still possibly is 400 or 500 sitting there.
Tattletale reporting is.
Well,
Yeah,
don't
always
always tell because your mom told you not to be a tattletale. Nobody said.
Reporting has always been on best, invest events, I mean.
Okay.
We just
There's no
can't,
pay for that.
we just can't,
But
we
it's a
can't see
community
everything all the
thing.
time.
If it's a community thing. And people want to do it, let's just go get, with the help of the community, get the ones that are there. And if none come in, then guess what? We don't have any illegal stuff going on, so if you know that it's illegal,
But are you talking
We're
about,
done.
we've been doing that forever since we first
Okay.
started. Are you talking about promoting that though? And
I'm just
actually,
saying, look, it's not okay.
huh?
rewards.
No, we're not having,
Oh, no.
well, we're taking tips. No, it's not, we have an anonymous section on our.
If it's rewards, I'm gonna start. Checking streets.
But to think that citizens want to put it all on the city. Well, they should do this, they should do this. No. as citizens, let's get our city, you know, where this is. This bothers, we want compliance, we want the behavior, which means if you're not saying, I think there's one illegal, then you're part of the problem in the short-term rentals for not having hotel tax. I mean, once again, be extremely proactive, pull it back or think about it. Because it can't always be this every year. We're gonna get better and better and better and better every year. If somebody buys a house, everybody says, well, have you gone to check? Are you gonna rent it? You know, we have good realtors that say you need to go register or get a property management company, or they're referring property management companies. But be truly proactive that, hey, this is for real. You know, we are that town, there's more coming. And just try to do it the way that
I
we
mean,
think it should. be.
What are you thinking about? How
Crime
we get that?
stoppers.
Crime stopper. What does that mean?
Crime stoppers,
Call them out.
$200 reward.
Okay, now
for
we're getting to the meat.
I mean, I'm just saying,
Haven't done that.
it's gonna cost the city more money to go after all these than to do. I mean, just, it's ridiculous.
The
But
easy way to do this, and I think in very early stages, we brought in, and I don't remember who brought in, but examples around the country, different programs, different softwares. We just need a map of all the properties that are registered from your database. It goes out, it's tied to the website. It says, want a reward? Is your neighbor registered? I don't care which. The thought was on that at one time was, because it's pretty intimidating to walk up and shine your flashlight on their sign and go. "Oh, that's what we're doing." But that map was, and I remember the talk about it, that we could blow up the map, you could click on it. That's the property, they're hanging out the windows, they're partying down there, I'm doing a report. Versus having to go, well, I'm not really sure, but I'm gonna take my flashlight down there and hope they don't shoot at me and shine the light up on that sign.
So I think you can do it on our city website as a complaint.
I just want to see if we can do that, and, you know, because that was one of the things I
The
think.
GIS, the map is
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
because word gets out.
Yeah.
That. We probably don't get on the register. Or at least the people. Who know it's an easy catch or feeling a little guilty, you're gonna come forward and straighten it out. You're still gonna have to go run after somebody, and you're still gonna have the person that. Bought something, put it in the pool and. Waits for their check. But at least it's proactive.
Wrap up here.
But that's still our best, I mean, that is our best, easiest enforcement is when somebody calls and says, hey. Is this person registered? And Carla, you know, Laura, they can check immediately and then, nope, not registered. Well, be advised.
Because the individual owner has to be bothered that their neighbor isn't registered and doing this. That's gotta bother them because they're doing it right. It's gotta bother the short-term rental. Management companies that's not doing right. Peer pressure works, not for everybody.
Well, and like I said, our code enforcement site has an anonymous ability that, you know, so any of you, for example, can say, hey, you know, I want to check out, you know, 123 Steve's side because you should.
But you.
That's it. It's anonymous. We
But
have
it's
no
an easy,
idea.
it's an easy fix.
Yeah.
If there's an article that says these committees have met. We have found out that the golf cart meeting people, the SDR meeting people, when they first started, we used to think, oh, we're gonna come in and go, let's get. No. They've always provided. And now we're, you know, moving a little faster forward. Just because of the volume that's gonna come, and we get better at it and we learn. But promote,
Yeah, that is just getting that word out. you know, and then maybe we use.
Maybe the communications, the city communication officer.
If you pay rewards, you will get more
So it-
complaints.
it
I can
doesn't
see it in the jetty now.
It doesn't put them out there, but it's definitely you can do it.
See, something, somebody.
The jetty says, city asking residents to turn in your neighbors.
Yeah.
Some.
Be a good
something
neighbor,
that's
turn in
here
your bad neighbors.
All right,
Anonymously.
And get your
yeah,
kids.
yeah,
All right,
all right, we need to adjourn this meeting.
Tim, you and I,
Yeah,
we'll get together and kind of coalesce this into some
appreciate y'all.
things.
This is a start. We'll plan for probably at least 1 or 2 meetings in the springtime again, or getting the season. If there's anything else, thoughts.
Let
Because
us
we
know.
get this all together, and we're all not gonna agree on everything, but at least we're coming with some ideals that are hopefully moving us forward. So I think we're probably planning for something maybe late February, or into the spring break, just one meeting, just to, you know, recap and, hey, are there any issues with what's going on? This would be separate from the SDR meeting. This would be just our work group.
Yeah, because I mean, I'll just keep in mind all of these things that, you know, that Tim will carry, 2 other council members, that still needs 4 nod, they, you know, they're still gonna. Like I said, it's still a council decision as a quorum, so. Fortunately, we don't have a quorum here, but so, like I said, I think it's all good ideas, I don't think it's radical changes, I think it's steering the ship like I always. You know, encourage to be done, you know, in something like this. So, I think it's a good start. It's doing something, you know, it's doing something, it's a good start.
Thank you all.
I'm going to.
Yeah.
All right.
We also need to find.